Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the County Board public hearing for the fiscal 2023 through 32 capital improvement plan. I'm Chair Katie Crystal. I'm joined today by my colleagues, Vice Chairman Christian Dorsey, Libby Garvey, Matt DeFerenti, and Takis Karantonis will be with us presently. Tonight, we are looking forward to hearing your public testimony on the proposed capital improvement plan. Just by way of very quick introduction, we're going to share with you a little "You Are Here" notice of where we are in the process for those who are interested in learning more. I also wanted to share just one announcement apropos of a recently adopted element of the school's CIP. So as many of you may know, because you've been engaging with us throughout, but we are right in the middle of adopting, or the process of evaluating, the manager's capital improvement plan. So we will be taking the public hearing. We are here tonight on June 28th, moving towards a final board markup on July 14th with adoption on July 16th. Up until now, we have had a series of work sessions. If you'd like to learn more about what the county staff and the county manager have proposed for an area of interest to you, from transportation to parks and recreation, or anything else, those work sessions are a great way to learn a little bit more. In general, we encourage you to visit arlingtonva.us and search capital improvement plan. We also have a new map, new this year, that we are really excited about, that allows you to sort by area of the county as well as area of interest to you. Again, transportation, parks and recreation, water, sewer, infrastructure investments. So you can sort and see how this CIP affects the whole of the county or maybe your own neighborhood. Before we launch, I have just one word to note. Speaking of process, our counterparts on the Arlington County School Board did adopt their CIP last week. I just wanted to note, in the event that anybody is here to talk about the Kenmore turf fields, to give you the latest and greatest, they have adopted a plan in consultation with us to move that project up to 2025 in the CIP plan, and the county board in conversation with the Department of Management and Finance, and the manager is prepared to match that. So if that's an issue of interest to you, wanted to make sure you knew about that update. Okay, a couple of announcements regarding speakers. Our clerk, Mr. Kushner, will call speakers 2 at a time, beginning with the pre-registered 2-minute speakers, followed by those pre-registered for 3 minutes. Then we'll hear from anyone who is registered after the start of the meeting in the same order, 2-minute speakers followed by 3. And speaker sign-up does continue to be available, countyboard.arlingtonva.us, and here on the 3rd floor until 8 p.m. So if you're listening and moved to join the conversation, you have about 50 minutes still to do that. If you're joining us remotely on Microsoft Teams, it will help us a lot if you could keep your microphones muted and your cameras off until you're called to speak. If you're calling in by phone, press *6 to unmute. And if you're using a computer browser or your app, click that microphone button on the toolbar. If you are here to speak in person, that podium goes up or down with some arrows on the front right side, if you're looking at it, to accommodate your height. It helps us a lot if you speak directly into the microphone. That way my colleagues and I hear you, and the audio recording and visual recording picks up so that anybody following along can hear it. The tone will give you a warning when your time is about to elapse, and then again when it is elapsed, and Mr. Kushner will cut you off if necessary, but I'm sure that won't be necessary. And if you have any written statements to share with us, we welcome those. You can hand copies to our clerk. You can email countyboard@arlingtonva.us to see those as well, and we will make those part of the public record. Okay, so thank you again for joining us tonight, and with that, our clerk will call the first 2 speakers. Mr. Kushner.
Of course, our first speaker is Ms. Kathleen Reeder, followed by David Smith.
Okay, my name is Kathy Reeder. I'm chair of the recently renamed Arlington Neighborhoods Advisory Committee, ARNAC, formerly the NCAC. Tonight, I'm reiterating ARNAC's strong support for $6 million of new bond funding, $3 million per year for FY23 and 24, rather than the $2 million per year that has been proposed by the county manager. When I signed up to speak tonight, I forwarded a copy of the February 28th letter to the county board by the NCAC. This letter explains in detail why ARNAC is requesting $3 million of new bond funding each year in FY23 and 24 for the Arlington Neighborhoods Program. This is a modest funding level compared to the allocations prior to 2018 when funding was first reduced, and acknowledges savings available from completed projects to provide total funding equal to the 2016 level. The letter includes a request to significantly ramp up bond funding starting in FY25 and work to implement recommendations from the 2021 program review. have been completed through the implementation framework. Although I didn't forward copies of these, at least 9 letters supporting the $6 million request were sent to the county board by different Arlington civic associations. We appreciate the county manager has included a significant ramp up of bond funding over the course of the CIP, but we urge you to support funding the program at $3 million per year for the next 2 years, an increase of $1 million per year over what has been proposed. If necessary, the funding for FY24 can be reduced to offset this. In our letter, we mentioned that the implementation framework includes a continued focus on the racial and social equity of the AN program, with those considerations included in every area of the framework. An additional $1 million per year would fund 2 additional projects, major projects, or several additional minor projects. It would also allow us to test some equity approaches for project selection without disrupting projects that have been in the pipeline for some time. This will accelerate inclusion of equity at a project selection criteria sooner than waiting for completion of the implementation framework, which is expected to take 18 to 24 months. Thank you for considering this request.
Thank you, Ms. Reeder.
All right, our next speaker is David Smith, followed by Julie Rosenberg.
Hi, good evening. My name is David Smith, a Bluemont resident. I'm here tonight to offer support to the stormwater-related funding allocated within this CIP. I'm representing the Lubber Run Watershed Group, a group founded in 2021 and comprised of members from 6 civic associations within the Lubber Run Watershed who are concerned with stormwater issues within our community. I'm also here on behalf of John Ford, the Arlington County Civic Federation incoming president and current chair of the Federation's Public Services Committee. John very much regrets not being able to attend tonight, but he does look forward to continued active collaboration with the board and county staff. Since our recent disastrous and costly floods of 2018 and 2019, over 25 civic associations, including more than 100 civic association members, have gathered and worked to understand our community's watersheds and stormwater infrastructure. We have learned that Arlington's infrastructure is aging and was never designed to handle the capacity of runoff we are now seeing, a direct consequence of heavy development, reduced tree canopy, and possibly increased storm intensity. We have done our very best to engage with the county board members, the Department of Environmental Services, and other community leaders to learn from them, as well as provide meaningful input to our community challenges. We are here tonight to applaud the efforts of DES and the county board on this ambitious commitment to stormwater flood remediation within Arlington and to bring Arlington up to the funding standards of the counties and cities with which we border. We recognize that there is a long road ahead to rectify our county stormwater issues, and we are committed to maintaining our engagement with you through this process of improvement. I will leave you with this. The West has fires, we have floods. Your actions today on stormwater funding will ensure that Arlington County is prepared for the next big storm, and perhaps one day in the not too distant future, a future you are establishing today with your commitment on stormwater funding, Arlington County will be considered best in class for stormwater infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
All right, our next speaker is Julie Rosenberg, followed by William Mcdonald.
Could you pause for a second? There we go.
Okay, so I'm Julie Rosenberg, and I am really happy to be here to talk about the climate implications of the capital improvement plan. I've met with many of you, and I am now volunteering with the Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions, but I recently retired from the Environmental Protection Agency, where I worked with local governments, helping them develop their climate strategies. So I'm here to stress that you all know that climate change is urgent. We are now in a climate crisis, and it's a big lift to address it, both to build our infrastructure to reduce emissions, as well as to address the changes that we're experiencing already, including storm challenges, as well as impacts to some of the more challenged folks in our communities. So we appreciate that the CIP includes some very specific investments that will address climate impacts, but we would like to see more investments coordinated a little bit better than what has been proposed. What we would really like is for the CIP to incorporate climate considerations in every investment, and make sure that every project is considered for its climate impact. So that means the energy sources in buildings are would be designed, the buildings would be designed so energy sources eliminate the use of fossil fuels, and land uses encourage heat mitigation, stormwater management, and other adaptive strategies. We're very glad to see there's a new office that's being created in the county manager's office to coordinate these. Thank you.
You have another 20 seconds if you.
Oh, I do. Okay. So we're hoping that the new office will actually help to design a broad and credible approach for how the county assesses our greenhouse gas emissions and the climate impacts of benefits, as well as metrics for assessing their effectiveness. And we appreciate the commitment that we're seeing, and we'd like to work with you to see more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rosenberg. And a great reminder that first beep is a warning. You still have 30 seconds to go after it. Yeah, that's on me for not clarifying better at the start. All right, welcome.
All right, our next speaker is William Mcdonald, followed by Jillian Burgess.
Hi, my name is William Mcdonald. I'm a resident of Arlington. I'm a chef. My wife is an APS teacher. We have a toddler that's going into pre-K in the autumn, in the fall. And we live in Arlington, and we had a pandemic baby. And it was the greatest place ever that we could have raised a baby during Arlington. The parks are unbelievable. Now that she's out of a stroller, I am on the car-free diet. And bike infrastructure in Arlington is lacking somewhat, especially in my place off Columbia Pike. I know they've talked about the country club connector. Nobody's going to use it if it's stairs. I mean, maybe that's the point, but that directly affects me because the whole Amazon HQ2, I'd never be able to get to it because, I can't ride a bike up the stairs. Also, they talk about the Carleton connector down Fairfax. There's no dedicated bike lanes. Again, I used to live on the edge before riding a bike, but now I have a baby on the back. So it's like the most important thing to me because guess what? I'm not buying a car. Nobody's buying a car these days. It's pointless. It's horrible. This is an urban area. But my wife and I signed an 18-month lease, and so I'm giving myself 18 months to say, we're going to stay in Arlington. It's like Arlington County is a chocolate chip cookie and everybody else is an oatmeal raisin, honestly. But it should stay that way, and safety for my baby, really. But I don't really have anything else. Did I press a button now?
Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. It's going to be hard to top that analogy tonight.
All right, our next speaker is Jillian Burgess, followed by Jane Green.
Thank you. My name is Jillian Burgess. I'm here in my personal capacity to talk about the proposed transportation investments in the CIP. But I'm not actually here to talk about transportation for me. I'm here to talk about mobility for my kids. I have 3 kids. And as my kids get to the ages where they're responsible enough to get around on their own, I'm realizing how critical it is for the infrastructure to exist for them to get around safely. I find that I, a confident, experienced adult, can get around all of Arlington on a bike and a lot of places in Arlington using transit. And when I can't, I can drive. No big deal. But for my kids, the calculus is different. For them to be able to get around, we need a safe, comfortable, easy to follow bike network, which is lacking, unfortunately, in a lot of Arlington. And we need transit to be convenient for them. It needs to serve the times that they need to go to school, need to come home, and need to get to activities. It needs to go to all the places that they need to go for them to be able to have independent mobility as they grow up. The proposed CIP has a lot of good items in there to get us where we need to go. I particularly appreciate the funding for improvements on George Mason, on Carlin Springs, absolutely critical for movement within the county, especially for students, and Fairfax Drive. And I really appreciate the flexible pots of money that let us address transportation as it develops over time. However, I worry about the pace of these investments. My oldest will graduate from APS in 2029, my youngest in 2033. Hopefully all goes to plan. So will we have complete networks by then? Will they be able to get around by bike and by transit as they go through their teenage years? So I appreciate the enormous amount of work that went into the CIP. I think there's lots of improvements in this CIP versus old ones, but I ask you to considering upping the pace of investments so that we can meet our safety goals, so that we can meet our sustainability goals, and so that we can make parents' lives easier. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All All right, our next speaker is Jane Green, followed by John Kirkpatrick.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can. Well, good evening.
Thank you so much. I'm here to support greater investment in safe streets and mobility, especially as Jillian pointed out, for families and for kids. My son is just starting to bike on his own with a parent, alongside him. And I'm starting to realize that there's not a lot of safe places for him to go. I think that we can have a more equitable and safe community when we build the infrastructure that supports kids and families, getting out of their cars when they can, and using our infrastructure. I live in the Roslyn courthouse area, so I'm especially happy to see improvements in the Roslyn core. We have a very big lack of protected bike lanes, and since there's so much development going on, it's a good opportunity to give people better access to the Custis Trail and to the Mount Vernon Trail and over into DC. And I'm also really happy to see about the Fairfax Drive and the 10th Street connector, because Fairfax Drive is a great opportunity to bike to the Central Library. And if we can have better, 10th Street is a nightmare, and I would never tell anyone to walk or bike over there. So having improvements there would be great. Some places for improvement are additional funding to get that Army-Navy connector trail to have a trail rather than stairs, so that even though it will be steep, it will still give options for people with strollers or e-bikes or other mobility aids, the way that stairs just don't allow. So having that extra funding to go for the stairs option will be really critical. I used to live in that neighborhood. It will really help connect different parts of Arlington and give another option besides Columbia Pike. And then the Clarendon connector. Clarendon has a lot of north-south bike and street improvements, and there's some more to come. I saw in the complete streets plan, but having some north-south would be really helpful to just make sure that that area is a place that people can get to. They can come to that activity center without relying on cars. So thank you so much for all of the investment, and let's keep the pace up.
Thank you very much.
All right, our next speaker is John Kirkpatrick, followed by Adam Theo.
Hi, thank you for the time. I am Vice Chair of the Arlington Neighborhoods Program, specifically the newly named RNAC, and I'd like to reiterate our support for our chair, what our Chair Kathy Reeder said. I just wanted to say I appreciate you hearing us, and wanted to note that the RNAC has is happy to see some funding in the budget, but we would like to see a little bit more for the reasons that Kathy mentioned. And just as some background, the civic associations that belong to the RNAC have been waiting for at least one cycle, possibly two cycles, for some additional funding, as the Arlington Neighborhoods Program has been under review. And I think it would be a positive sign to the RNAC that the funding that Kathy is asking for, an additional $1 million for each year for a total of an additional $2 million, would be supported, because the RNAC, I think, has shown over time that it is using the funding responsibly. There is $6 million in savings, which the RNAC is using to contribute to continue to fund projects. But there is some concern on members of the committee that more support is needed in order to continue our function, and that we have sacrificed already in order to achieve greater goals. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
All right, our next speaker is Adam Theo, followed by Elizabeth Stell.
Good evening, County Board. I'm Adam Theo, independent candidate for Arlington County Board this year. I think last time I was up here about a week ago, I was talking on stormwater issues, and I was very excited to listen in to the work session that was earlier today. Ms. Garvey, thank you very much for bringing up the point about trying to figure out how things could cost less if they were, running over in time. I was very confused by that as well. And Mr. Dorsey, thank you for the explanation. I have to admit, I'm still confused by it. It does not make sense, but I'm looking to, yeah, exactly. But right now, I'm talking about transportation, specifically transportation with accessibility and ADA and people with disabilities, particularly with the Army-Navy Country Club connector. There have been 2 design alternatives being floated around, and I am saddened to see that there's only funding in the CIP for the inferior version, the version that has stairs, the version that does not accommodate people with disabilities. I think that people with disabilities, people who are needing that accessible connection across, should be your #1 audience for that trail connector. Everyone else, like myself, we can walk, we can take stairs, but to have a ramp option there is critical for that. Please spend a little bit extra money to make sure that the ramp happens. Also with bus stops, I think it was about 15 years ago, maybe a little bit more, that Arlington County was sued over Americans for Disabilities. We settled. It was embarrassing. Let's not do it again. Please make sure that our bus stops, our bus stations are ADA compliant. Let's speed up the funding for that. It's been more than 10 years to get less than halfway there. We need to make sure that we reach that before another 10 years, before the end of the CIP. So thank you all very much.
Mr. Theo.
All right, our next speaker is Elizabeth Stell, followed by Collier Cook.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Stell. I'm a longtime native Arlingtonian. I'm a member of Arlington Soccer. I have 2 daughters who played soccer or play soccer. One still plays, one has graduated. And I was very happy to see that you moved the Kenmore project earlier. That's a nice central location, and we're definitely short on playing spaces for, the kids and adults and everybody in the county. So I just wanted to, I was going to speak about that, but it being moved earlier is great. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Stell.
Sorry, our next speaker is Collier Cook, followed by Brian Plesser.
Good evening, Chair Crystal and members of the County Board. There's a lot of great things to like about the draft CIP in front of you. These include a number of great transportation projects, including new and expanded paved trails, added protected bike lanes, various complete street enhancements, and capital improvements to transit that will help reduce travel times and make the system more pleasant to use. One of my favorite initiatives that I'd like to highlight is the planned study to reimagine Fairfax Drive in Ballston, Virginia Square. I hope the study will start the process to reorient it from a wide, fast thoroughfare to a truly multimodal corridor that is safe and comfortable for all users, no matter their age or ability. As a reminder, this has been supported by the Ballston bid, and based upon conversations with representatives from George Mason University last night, they too want to see a more tamed Fairfax Drive that's more pleasant for all to use. Based on crash stats, Fairfax Drive is in dire need for improvement. Luckily, it's a wide corridor that has adequate space to transform into a place that can be celebrated rather than avoided. Now, I'd like to turn to an item that I'd like to see further enhanced in the CIP. To date, the county has upgraded about half of our bus stops to meet ADA standards, and the current pace set forth in the draft CIP will take over a decade to complete. Do you think it should take more than a decade to get our bus stops ADA accessible? Does this reflect our county values? Does this align with our county vision to be inclusive, a place where each person is important? I think we need to accelerate these bus stop retrofits, and I hope you do too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cook.
Our next speaker is Brian Plesser, followed by Brad Harmon. Mr. Plesser, if you're with us. All right, moving on. Our next speaker is Brad.
Hello. Can you hear me? I'm sorry, I was unmuting myself. Sorry about that.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Thank you, Arlington County Board members, for holding this open forum. I'm sorry that I can't be with you tonight. My name is Brian Plesser, and I am a resident of Arlington and the president of the Arlington Soccer Association Board of Directors. I support the proposed conversion of the grass fields at Kenmore Middle School to synthetic turf. I am encouraged to see that the county and school system has moved the project up into fiscal year 2025. Our organization is excited about the project. We look forward to engaging with county staff over the next few months and years to make the project come to life. In addition, we respectfully ask that the zoning changes will allow for lighting athletic fields envisioned in the public spaces master plan to be prioritized. We urge that the process for making those changes start sooner rather than later so that projects like lighting the fields at Williamsburg Middle School can be included in future capital improvement plans. My understanding is those fields have been light ready since its initial construction. Thank you for your support for our children, their health and wellness, the entire Arlington community. We look forward to partnering with you in these endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Plesser.
All right, our next speaker is Brad Harmon, followed by Jeff Vollmer.
We turn it
Yes,
off.
it did.
There we go.
Okay, sorry about that. Hi, my name is Brad Harmon. I'm a resident of Colonial Village, and I'm coming today to first off say thank you for all of the bike improvements that are already listed in the capital improvement plan. I think there are a lot of really fantastic projects that deserve support yesterday, let alone tomorrow, but thank you so much. I just wanted to also, give you my support for improving the north-south connections in the Clarendon area, and additionally to, if possible, advance funding for the Fairfax multimodal project, because I think both of those are, critical regions of, areas that we can make biking easier in Arlington, improve, sustainable transit in the area that in a way that isn't flooding our streets with traffic and is supporting low carbon ways to move around in the area. I think Arlington's a national leader in bike infrastructure already, and I think that we can do even more to make sure that it's safe for everyone to move around the county. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harmon.
All right, our next speaker is Jeff Vollmer, followed by Elizabeth Carleton.
Welcome.
I'll use this.
Terrific.
Good evening. The county has budgeted nearly $34 million for the synthetic turf program over the next 10 years to replace turf fields. But the replacement of tennis courts and therefore pickleball courts isn't typically included in the county's budget. When tennis courts lasted 30 years at a time, this was fine, but now since courts are constructed with recycled products, courts simply don't last as long. The courts at the Walter Reed Community Center are in pretty serious need of renovation. At 10:30 this morning, I was there, over 60 people were playing pickleball on these courts, and I just got a message that there are over 50 people there right now, so over 100 people are using these courts daily. These people are getting their 10,000 steps in, but they're also risking injury due to the many cracks and depressions on the court surfaces. The Walter Reed Community Center court renovation and redesign has been budgeted for 2023, and the Arlington pickleball community is really excited for this redesign. Having played on the beautiful courts in Richmond, Woodbridge, and other areas of Virginia, I can't wait to have access to a facility like those close to me. But we've also heard in the meeting that took place on June 14th that construction on these courts may not begin until 2024, and having to wait potentially more than 18 months for construction to begin has me and a number of the other players in the community quite nervous. The courts are deteriorating more and more every day, continually increasing the risk of injury to the players there. Therefore, for the sake of the safety of our county's residents, we're asking that the county expedite this project and also build replacement costs for tennis and pickleball courts into future budgets, as the county has done for synthetic turf fields. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will note that I think we might move a little faster if we don't make audible noise, but the waving paddles are a great way to support. We can visually see you. So
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Carleton. I've been outside this building 3 times in the last month to, protest in favor of better gun control and a woman's right to choose. I'm really happy to be here tonight to just talk about pickleball. Pickleball is awesome. I'm a 30-year resident of Arlington County, and I'm a very proud taxpayer. I love it that my county likes to invest and support state-of-the-art recreational and cultural investments toward the goals of improving our health, our mobility, and our connections across all of our wonderful neighborhoods. Pickleball has surged into popularity in the last 4 or 5 years for one major reason, and that is because pickleball is a great equalizer. In my experience, having played for the past 5 years, it encourages Arlingtonians of all ages, talents, sexes, socioeconomic levels to play together, get to know each other, learn from each other, help each other, and enjoy each other's company. On a personal level, I'm married to a basketball fanatic who, during COVID, had to ditch his basketball because the gyms were closed, and now he is a pickleball fanatic just like me, and it has just changed our lives. We probably play 4 or 5 times a week. So I, therefore, like all of my colleagues here, encourage the county to act expeditiously on the much-needed improvements at Walter Reed. It's a great facility with a couple of tweaks and better court surface and reorientation of the courts to a north-south orientation and squeezing in a couple more courts. It would do wonders to really accommodate the dozens of people who come to play at that court every day. So I encourage the county to act quickly on this, to speed up the schedule if you can. And everyone here in this room has a very granular understanding of all of the pros and cons of those courts. We'd be happy to continue the conversation with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, our next speaker is Craig Hubbard, followed by Chandra Suchek.
Gonna have to move this down.
There you go.
Is that good? Hey, I'm Craig, and I'm happy to be talking to each of these future pickleball players. You're gonna love it, and it's gonna cause you to alter your timeline for retirement so you can play it daily like the people in this room. And I say that jokingly, but I know in my heart it's true too. I'm gonna talk about some recent historical situations and current situations. The county site states that they're going to create new pickleball courts, yet we've lost 3 in the past year. 2 at Jenny Craig are gone. There's a new beautiful soccer field, baseball diamond. There's new swings, tunnels, slides, and other things kids like to play on. Surrounding the baseball field is a beautiful, tall, black chain link fence, but the 2 pickleball courts are gone. And there are new tennis courts, but no pickleball lines are drawn on those courts. We also lost the most popular pickleball court in Arlington County, in North Arlington. That was shut down after a couple months because of noise complaints by residents. But there's a noise ordinance in Arlington that was not followed by the county. And I lost my part there. But that was in North Arlington. In South Arlington, as has been mentioned, we're playing on horribly damaged courts. And it's it is 100 people a day are playing on these courts. And we really need that renovation to stay in the 2023. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hubbard.
All right, our next speaker is Chandra Suchek, followed by Mary Catwalder.
Oh, hi. Some very eloquent speakers. I am probably not one of them, but anyway. Well, this is just a great opportunity to share some of the positive effects of pickleball to our community. More positive. With COVID inhibiting our health the past few years, it has been really obvious that socializing and exercise has taken a back seat. And during COVID, it was truly remarkable to see the numbers of people who are coming out to play pickleball. And I was one of them. I come from a tennis background, but I'd be honest, years ago, when I saw it and tried it, I didn't like it. But when COVID hit, I went back out and tried it, and I was like, wow, this is really fun. And I go over to Walter Reed maybe once a week, and one of the things that I've noticed is that across the DC metro area is that pickleball is an asset. It's not an essential, but it improves the overall health of our community on and off the court. And it was mentioned before how it's kind of a melting pot of people who are playing over at Walter Reed. It's really remarkable. It really is. People skateboard over, people walk over, they drive over, all ages. It's truly remarkable. It's an amazing community. Of the communities that I play, it is my favorite community. And I've traveled extensively now up and down the East Coast and in California recently. And it's even Flushing Meadows in New York City. Some of you even played there. And the community here was so supportive of they weren't playing, but they were supportive. So I just want to reinforce that, we need these courts. We have 100 people a day on these courts, and they are substandard at Walter Reed, and I really hope that we can get dedicated courts. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Schick.
All right, our next speaker is Mary Catwalder, followed by Lori Siegel.
Hi, I'm Mary Catwalder. I'm also an avid pickleball player and a resident of South Arlington, and the Walter Reed courts are just blocks from my home where I've lived for over 20 years. I was so happy to see the courts resurface last October, but quickly disheartened to see the large cracks and puddles reappeared within 2 months. The resurfacing cost about $30,000. It was just a clear example of public money used for something that didn't work. And according to the county, the Walter Reed courts were built more than 70 years ago. So simply resurfacing tennis courts in the Arlington area past the 25-year lifetime of a court is a waste of our good tax money. So I urge the board to construct the dedicated pickleball courts at Walter Reed in early 2023 as the CIP budget originally stipulated. We just can't wait another year as the courts continue to deteriorate and more people get injured. And as Jeff mentioned, with artificial turf, there's a budget line. There needs to be a similar budget line to reconstruct tennis and pickleball courts, just as there is for artificial turf. Last week, I played pickleball with 3 people in their 30s. On the court next to us was a family with 8-year-old kids playing with their grandparents. Days before that, I played with a 15-year-old, and I regularly play with people in their 60s and 70s. It wasn't like this even 2 years ago. The game has changed. It's growing. Everyone enjoys the sport because it's a great family sport. Hundreds of people are taking pickleball lessons through classes offered by the county, yet the county provides very few courts for those players to play on. Lining more courts for pickleball is crucial to meet this ongoing demand, and it's an inexpensive solution. We value Arlington's reputation as a healthy place to live, but we need your help. Please anticipate, plan, and budget for pickleball's growth in this CIP and for years to come, because it is here to stay.
Thank you very much, Ms. Catwalder.
All right, our next speaker is Lori Siegel, followed by Frank DeMarco.
Seeing $2 million budgeted for the 2023 Walter Reed renovation was great, until Board Chair Katie Crystal asked Eric Beach if the renovation would be completed in 2023, and he basically said no comment, and then added that it may not even begin until 2024. So we're so excited, but is it really on the 2023 budget? Doesn't seem to be a timeline or a beginning month or even year or ending month or year, and it's not on the interactive map at all. Walter Reed's just not even there. This is the country's 7th wealthiest county with a $1 billion budget. There's a lot of real estate taxes coming in, and item, the Walter Reed renovation, is being pushed off into a vaguely defined future of sometime later. And as has been said by a few people, more than 100 people play on these courts every day. And we really need this to be taken seriously because they're just further deteriorating and there's more injuries. And the other thing is we desperately need more line courts, which is a really inexpensive fix because there's about $1,000 cost per court to line them, and to provide a net. That's really inexpensive, and it's wonderful that all the people that are taking classes through the county, more than 100 people just started classes yesterday, but there's no place for them to play. And it's just a bad recipe for the county and for us. And we want help to catch up. We're behind. And you can see what's happening all around us. Fairfax County, oops. Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, and our next speaker is Frank DeMarco, followed by Carol Skelly.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, Madam Chair, fellow board members, and County Manager Mark Schwartz. I am the Executive Director of the Arlington Soccer Association. I'm here to speak on behalf of our 9,000 members. Our 9,000 kids who are very active in soccer are extremely grateful for the opportunity to engage. We're extremely excited about the Kenmore project. We wanted to reiterate our commitment to helping the county and the school board move that project forward. We look forward to engaging with staff over the next few months and years to move that project forward. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate your efforts on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you give me just a moment. All right, our next speaker is Carol Skelly, followed by Tom O'Reilly.
And you're welcome to move the podium down if you'd be more comfortable, but it's on the buttons on the right side. There we go.
Thank you. All right. Good evening. I am speaking tonight on behalf of the Community Services Board to ask you to include capacity to serve individuals with developmental disabilities in the CIP. During the 20 years that I've been active in the CSB, the County Board has made and honored a commitment to provide day or employment programs for adults with developmental disabilities, or DD. This policy supported a generation of Arlingtonians with special needs, enabling them to participate in community life after leaving school. CSB clients with DD face multiple systemic disadvantages. Most have very low incomes. The percentages who are Black and multiracial significantly exceed the county averages. Other clients from more privileged backgrounds live with aging parents whose caregiving abilities are declining, and some have no family support once their parents pass on. When Arlington-based day and employment programs began to fill up 5 years ago, the CSB placed additional clients outside of the county. Unfortunately, just prior to the pandemic, almost all programs in the region became oversubscribed. It was clear that new capacity would be needed within Arlington. In April of 2021, this board recommitted to serving adults with DD by asking for a plan that would meet demand for day and employment programs over a 5-year time horizon. This past April 2022, you provided one-time funds for 15 clients to participate in a pilot program housed in temporary space. We are very grateful for this allocation of funds. However, the pilot is likely to fill up almost immediately due to the backlog in demand. Permanent space is still needed to provide local program choices for an estimated 70 to 100 clients by the end of the 5-year period. DD programs require significant lead time to build out space, contract with nonprofit service providers, and be licensed by the state. If you wait for the FY25 CIP, it is very likely that for the first time in 20 years, youth will graduate from the Arlington Public Schools without an appropriate program. So the CSB is asking that you prioritize this need for the current CIP. We are also asking that in planning for this space, the county look carefully at the PCG consultant recommendations for best practices, which indicate that multiple smaller programs may be preferable to one large one. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gilly.
All right, our next speaker is Tom O'Reilly, followed by Audrey Clement.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm not here to talk about pickleball. I can't do that because I got a bum knee, but maybe someday. Hi, I'm here as the policy guy for the Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions, and which unites people of faith in search of local solutions to the climate crisis. We sent a letter to the board outlining our position, so I won't read that here. First off, I want to express my appreciation to the county staff and the county manager for pulling the CIP together in a pretty trying time, coming off of 2 years of pandemic and uncertainty. It's actually a great document, covers a lot of ground. When I review the plan, it speaks clearly to the need for maintenance, the desire to catch up for maintenance and make improvements to issues that have been outstanding in the community, everything from stormwater to traffic management. What it does not do is show a strong movement towards combating our contributions to the climate crisis or the community energy plan. Other than the $14.25 million, which is 0.3% of the total total plan, specifically designed for energy efficiency, the plan seems to envision a future status quo, keep on doing what we've been doing for years for county operations. There are a handful of green actions in the plan, which are great. Green streets for $7.1 million, Walk Arlington for 16.5, and hooray for Bike Arlington for 55.7 million. I have to get my knee working for that. We're concerned about the design, construction, and maintenance of county facilities and the buildings, which total about $280 million of the plan. We as a community need to move away from fossil fuels as quickly as possible. If we replace a gas system with another gas system, we are committing to fossil fuels for the next decades. With their intended emissions, everything from leaking methane at the fracking sites to transportation to the carbon dioxide at the end of their life. We need to move past that old technology and adopt a future without fossil fuels for our buildings, our transportation systems, and our homes. The county should make a clear commitment in this plan to have every building project be designed and implemented to be at least carbon neutral. We don't need more money to do the planning. CIP has at least $7 million in planning funds, but we should carefully weigh the life cycle cost of electrifying every building, 30 seconds, in transit. We need to include the social cost of carbon in our calculations as we do this. The county's been a leader in environmental issues for years. I think we've slipped a bit in the past couple of years. Committing to a carbon neutral future would reestablish us as a leader in the region and also attract big developers, new businesses into the community, people who are looking for the leadership that we can provide. Most importantly, it's our moral imperative to protect this planet for that we've been given in trust for our future generations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. O'Reilly.
Our next speaker is Audrey Clement, followed by Brian Mole.
Can you hear me?
We can. Good evening.
Okay, welcome members of the board and the county manager. I'm Audrey Clement, independent candidate for county board. The streams and water quality section of the latest 10-year CIP includes 3 items that likely represent stream restoration projects totaling over $20 million in expenditures, namely the Gulf Branch Stream Resiliency, Resilient Streams Plan, and Stream Resiliency Program. It's no accident that the phrase stream restoration has been excised from these project descriptions and replaced with the euphemistic expression resiliency. Stream restoration, which sometimes results in the clear cutting of streamside forested areas to make way for the bulldozing stream banks, has been debunked by a lot of scientists. At a recent Maryland Sierra Club meeting, Ken Bauer gave a presentation called The Greenwashing of Stream Restorations. Bauer summarized the reasons he opposes this destructive practice as follows. Stream restorations don't restore streams either physically or biologically. They import foreign material and destroy riparian ecosystems that can't be recreated by replanting trees. Stream restorations don't address the root cause of stream bank erosion, namely fire hosing stormwater into streams from impervious surfaces such as roofs and roads. There is ample evidence from around the region that these so-called stream restorations get destroyed by future storms. The science tells us that we should protect our forested areas since they counteract global warming by carbon sequestration, even if they aren't in pristine condition. The way to fix streams is to control stormwater by using out-of-stream practices such as rain gardens, bioswales, permeable pavement, and tree planting. As for the notion that stream restoration is needed to comply with federal MS4 permits, Bauer says that there are dozens of other ways to meet MS4 permit requirements using non-destructive out-of-stream practices like those described above. Alexandria is no longer pursuing natural channel design projects for Tyler Run or Strawberry Run. But Arlington County has doubled down on stream restoration by clear-cutting more than 80 trees from the site of Donaldson Run Tributary B off Military Road. According to environmental scientist Rod Simmons, this is a big deal. It's tantamount to government fiscal mismanagement and ballpark fraudulent actions, especially when the project was vigorously defended by stormwater management despite knowing full well that DEQ, the regulatory agency responsible for overseeing stream construction projects throughout the Commonwealth, no longer allows it.
Thank you, Dr. Clement.
Our next speaker is Brian Mull, followed by Joan Mcintyre.
Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the County Board and Manager Schwartz. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I know of all of you, but my name is Brian Mull, Executive Vice President at JBG Smith. As a landowner and property developer, very familiar with public projects in and around the Crystal City area, JBG Smith would like to ensure that two important projects receive proper consideration for immediate funding in the CIP. And we do thank you all for what is a truly a wonderful document. But we would like to chat about two priorities that we think would be very valuable to move up. The first is what is called Phase 2 of the 23rd Street Realignment Project to occur at and to the east of the Route 1 intersection at 23rd Street to the east of Crystal Drive. The realignment would offer significant improvements to vehicular, pedestrian, and bicycle safety by completely rebuilding and resignalizing the street's intersection with Route 1, creating new and completely protected bike lanes in both directions, and building a new, wider sidewalk, improved lighting, and new landscaping. Equally as important, the project is directly linked to the redevelopment of the existing vacant 223 23rd Street office building into two new residential buildings currently going through the 4.1 site plan process, with more than 1,400 units of much needed housing and over half an acre of much desired open space. The road alignment is necessary to move the public road out of the project's development site, meaning that this project and the important community benefits that will accompany it is unable to begin construction until the county project is completed. JBG Smith has estimated the cost of this realignment to be approximately $15 million, and that construction of the realignment would need to start in the fall of this year to allow the 223 23rd Street project to move forward without delay. While we understand the proposed CIP includes funding within the Crystal City, Pentagon City, Potomac Yard Streets program for the 23rd Street realignment, it is unclear to us how much funding has been allocated in what years and whether that funding is intended to cover the second phase of the project. In any event, JBG Smith respectfully requests that the board consider ensuring the 23rd Street project has the appropriate funding in the CIP in order to proceed immediately. The second request is for Center Park. The proposed CIP does not include funding for constructing Center Park until 2028, meaning there will be a 5-year gap where the new public plaza that's created by 1900 Crystal Drive, which will be complete next year, and this grand staircase that is part of that project will essentially dead end for about 5 years into the existing park space. And so we know that that is a priority park for the neighbors, for the community, and we also request that funding be moved up for that. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Moll.
All right, our next speaker is Joan Mcintyre, followed by Ben DiVonzo.
Good evening.
Get this up a little higher. Good evening. I'm Joan Mcintyre, Chair of the Climate Change, Energy, and Environment Commission. I will start by expressing our gratitude for the priority being given to climate resiliency and other environmental issues in the CIP. The county is making important commitments to advancing its CEP and other goals in many key areas, particularly vehicle electrification, including ART buses, EV charging infrastructure, and rooftop solar. We are pleased to see the proposed new investments in our natural resources, including restoring funding for land acquisition and the new Natural Resiliency Program. At the same time, we remain concerned that the CIP does not back up its claims of measurable progress in the project's descriptions of how key projects will, in fact, advance CEP and other environmental goals. Many projects reflect ongoing and necessary investment in the county facilities and infrastructure without distinguishing the amounts going specifically to these goals. To ensure that the CIP and other county initiatives fully align with the CEP and other climate goals, C2E2 recommends that the county board direct the county manager to develop a decarbonization plan for county operations to provide a clearly articulated roadmap for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and achieving carbon neutrality as soon as possible. Issue guidance that would require electrification of new facilities and existing ones, as numerous as gas-powered systems need replacing unless there is no feasible alternative. The CIP indicates numerous HVAC replacement projects, but only one specifically is targeted for electrification. And finally, we recommend that the county board request staff to provide a report describing the process used across the county government to ensure that significant programs and policy decisions are effectively reviewed for climate impact. A few additional notes. Sizable and clearly crucial investments are planned to improve Arlington's aging stormwater infrastructure and mitigate the risk of flooding. But the CIP offers minimal descriptions of how the project will address current challenges to reduce flooding, manage stormwater runoff, and reduce erosion and nutrient runoff. I believe this afternoon they talked a bit more about providing more details, which is encouraging. Specifics on equity objectives and the environmentally reported product are also limited, and we think there's opportunities there in terms of park access and reduction of heat island costs. To conclude, we are running out of time to make significant progress in forestalling the worst impacts of climate change. C2E2 urges the county board to demonstrate its regional leadership by continuing to advance its commitments to addressing these critical challenges. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. McIntyre.
Our next speaker is Ben DiVonzo, followed by Bernard Byrne. Mr. DiVonzo. All right, our next speaker is Bernard Byrne, followed by Chris Slatt.
Hello, it's Bernie Byrne. Good evening. I suggest that you will postpone the manager's proposed FY 2023 CIP funding for the Bluemont Park Tennis Complex replacement for at least 2 years. This could save the county up to 40% of its $5 million cost and provide other benefits. The project is item number 2 in the section of the proposed CIP entitled Local Parks and Recreation Parks Maintenance Capital. Delaying this project, funding this project, would provide time for the county to apply for a grant from the Virginia Land and Water Conservation Fund or Virginia Outdoors Fund, which can award from $250,000 to $2 million if a local jurisdiction provides a match of at least 50%. Further, the county board can use some of these funds from the grant for additional projects in Bluemont Park, including the completion of the Bluemont Junction Railroad display or the development of a community garden near the Reeves farmhouse. A public process would determine the distribution of the funds of the grant request. I've asked Diane Probus and other DPR staff to consider applying for this grant. However, they have not responded adequately, affirmatively to my request. A delay in funding for the tennis project would stimulate interest within DPR to apply for a grant, as well as save the county up to $2 million in funding for the complex and related projects in Bluemont Park. The county has never applied for a grant from the Virginia Outdoors Fund. This failure has cost the county many millions of dollars over the year. The need to replace the tennis court complex provides a unique opportunity to utilize this funding source to save the county's money, as well as to provide funds for additional projects within Bluemont Park. Basically, you're really missing the boat because that fund has been available. It depends on how much of a local match you give, and that's how they'll prioritize their projects. But to have one here in Bluemont Park, when you have other things that people wanted, like, as I say, a meadow near a community planning, community garden near Reeves Farm, or completion of the Bluemont Junction railroad display, which was funded enough to complete it. This is a unique opportunity. You won't find one any other time, but you would need to delay the funding to give the county time to apply for the grant and then to see if it received it. So that's the story. Just delay it 2 or 3 years, but don't fund it now, because then obviously it's going to be too late. You won't be, the county will have been on the way to funding it, and obviously the grant would be moved at that point. Please consider this very carefully. It's a chance you will not have again to save this amount of money using, basically, this is a Virginia state fund for parks. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Byrne.
All right, and our next and final speaker is Chris Slatt.
Good evening. I'm speaking tonight on the transportation areas of the CIP as a representative of Sustainable Mobility for Arlington County, a scrappy little 501c4 nonprofit advocacy organization fighting for sustainable mobility options in Arlington. First off, we want to commend county staff on one of the best 10-year CIPs we have ever seen. As proposed, the CIP will dramatically improve walking and biking in both Roslyn and Crystal City. It will create a peerless multimodal hub between air travel, regional rail, metro rail, BRT, biking, and more. It continues our critical commitment to Metro, which is the backbone of our county. It includes a number of studies looking at much-needed improvements on Fairfax Drive, George Mason Drive, Carleton Springs Road, and to the Arlington Boulevard Trail. While not perfect, this transportation CIP is well-focused and moving us in the right direction. 3 specific notes, however. 1, we must find a solution for moving north-south through Clarendon on bikes and scooters. This is not a problem that will solve itself. There is no safe, low-stress route that gets you across the many east-west arterials in this area. 2, building stairs for the ANCC trail connector would be a tragic capitulation to a neighbor who is not acting neighborly, to say the least. The stairs alternative is inferior, exclusionary, and will seem even sillier at the time of construction than it does now, given how ubiquitous e-assist mobility devices are likely to be in 2026. 3, replacing 15 compressed natural gas buses with 30 battery electric buses in order to provide the exact same service as those 15 CNG buses as this CIP proposes is lunacy and terrible environmentalism that misses the forest for the trees. The core environmental benefit of transit is allowing people to get around without cars. Conversion to zero-emission buses should wait until those buses can do the job. Any funds we have available to replace 15 buses with 30 buses should be used to add 15 more buses worth of transit service, increasing frequencies, extending hours of service, and expanding the transit network. That said, the biggest issue with the CIP is that the pace of change is still simply insufficient. This 10-year CIP takes us to that 2030 climate change tipping point where we are forecast to have used up our entire carbon budget unless we can drastically reduce our use in the lead up to that date. Where in this CIP is the needed drastic improvement? What project in this CIP will make a huge improvement in non-automotive mobility for most Arlingtonians? Second entrances to metro stations are not without utility, but the opportunity cost compared to other possible transportation objects is stark. How many dedicated bus lanes could be built with that time and those funds? How many miles of protected bike lanes? How many miles of trail? How many bus stops could be made ADA accessible? This transportation CIP now has a focus. What it needs next is ambition. I hope in the next 2 years, we can find the political will to take and make bigger plans and take greater action. Our kids deserve it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Slatt. All right. Have we had anybody sign up since then, Mr. Kushner?
We have no further speakers.
Okay. Well, with that, we emphatically thank those who've joined us tonight. Your feedback is really helpful as we deliberate on further changes to the manager's proposed CIP. And your comments tonight are, of course, part of a public record that joins in the many comments we've received by email and other formats throughout our deliberations of the CIP. So with that, I am going to move to close the public hearing on the proposed fiscal 2023 through 32 CIP and to carry over action to our meeting of July 16, 2022. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Carantonis. Unless there's any discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you all again very much.